Right.
So I did an event with Tovah the other night, and there were more than 10 Barbaras. I see tonight 4. So I want to beat the Barbara record. Also, are the two of you recording yourselves? I just realized that I should be.
Wait,
How
should I be?
smart?
There's a
How
recording.
smart you are. Fine.
Are we recording our show?
Yes.
Don't worry about it, Mark. Josh will capture the Zoom thing. Just sit
it's-
back, enjoy the show.
Okay.
It's being recorded. There's Josh. Josh, you're
Everyone
recording, right?
logging in now. The rest of the show is just this. There is no more to it. It's just us basically doing this, and then we're over.
It's interesting, Stephanie, that you go to how many Barbaras there are. I just always want to know how many Barrys there are. Because really, Barry as a name is much
There's
more
2
endangered than
Barrys.
Barbara. I only 2, but Barrys are dying off. I mean, there are no Barrys under 60. Barbara's poised for a comeback. I don't think Barry is.
Give me your Howards, your Heralds, your Irvings,
Your Allens.
your huddled heralds yearning to breathe free.
I only hear them. They have stopped my video, so I'm not available.
Your Myrons, your Iras.
I don't know what that was.
That was the voice in the
It was
mountaintop.
Okay.
Wasn't that Tovah?
That was Tovah, aka God.
Oh. No video yet. I think so. I mean, people are still going. You want to wait a second or two?
They
About
just keep
300
coming.
people. You know what? I'm
I'm
just
not
going to say a few words. I don't want to lose time on this, right?
Do it.
Okay, I'm going to welcome people. So welcome. My name is Ari Katz. I'm here in sunny, but not so sunny, Southern California, Irvine. I think Stephanie has been out here at least once. I don't think Mark, well, you were in San Diego. Liel, I don't know about Orange County, but we were going to do this live. We couldn't because of COVID. So we're very happy to have you in this venue on behalf of the Orange County Community Scholar Program. So I wanted to welcome you and all of our guests from around the country. I know we have many CSP followers here tonight, and regular supporters and participants in Unorthodox podcast as well. And we're looking forward to a great show. We wanted to thank the JCC, the Mirage JCC of Irvine, for being a co-sponsor. And we're very thankful for all of our partners and thankful for you guys for joining us. We're looking forward to a great show. I'm going to mute myself and we're going to go for it. So thank you.
Absolutely. So I think that's our cue. I am Mark Oppenheimer, and we're gonna do I'm with my co-host here, Stephanie Butnick.
Hello.
And Liel Leibowitz, and Liel Leibowitz, the ring-a-ding kid in white. And we're gonna do an official intro in just a moment that those of you who listen to our podcast know really, really well. But first, I want to echo Ari in thanking the Community Scholar Program, the CSP, which is an Orange County-based 501c3 committed to adult education. They're celebrating their 20th year of programming, and they've done over 230 programs since going completely online. It's just amazing what they've done. And now collaborating with the Mirage Jewish Community Center for co-sponsoring this podcast. Also, the grant from the Albert and Rhoda Weissman Arts Endowment Fund, which is a joint program of Jewish Community Foundation Orange County and the Jewish Federation Orange County. And then the local Orange County Unorthodox superfans, Alit Braswell and Mindy Schwartz. So it takes a whole village basically to bring us here, and they brought us here, and we're super excited. So what we're going to do now is give you a taste of the live show that we would be doing in person, where we begin with the introduction that you hear on the air if you subscribe to our podcast through Apple Podcast or any of the other platforms. And then we're going to take it from there, and we have a lot of great stuff for you over the next hour. You ready, Stephanie?
And wait, let's just tell them that you can type in the chat, tell us where you're coming from, tell us what your favorite Jewish name that should make a comeback is, tell us, and then we have the Q&A function. So throughout the show, when we're talking to Tovah Feldshuh later on, you can ask questions and we'll answer them. So that'll be later on in the show. But yeah, Mark, we can start.
Amen. Sella. I'm dedicating the show to the 2 people in the audience named Barry, because that's the Jewish name I think should make a comeback. So I'm just going to be out there with that right now. I'm going to go early with that. This is Unorthodox, the universe's leading Jewish podcast. I am your host, Mark Oppenheimer, joined as ever by fellow hosts, Tablet Deputy Editor Stephanie Butnick.
Hello.
And Tablet Editor at Large, Liel Leibowitz.
Shalom uvracha.
All of that. And we are here with the Orange County Jewish Community Scholar Program celebrating its 20th year of programming. We will be joined later in about 15 minutes by legendary actor, star of stage and screen, and everyone's favorite TV mom, Tovah Feldshuh. But first, we always make a practice of checking in with each other, especially since we no longer see each other in person. And so I want to hear what's up with Stephanie and Liel. Before we do that, I do want to take a moment. I know a lot of us have been thinking about the tragedy in Israel, and Liel, are there words for what went on there on Lag BaOmer? So unusual, unprecedented, so horrifying. What do we even say?
The only words are Baruch Dayan Emet, blessed be he, the righteous true judge.
And we want to let all of our listeners know we know that so many of you have family there. There were 3 Americans lost there, Canadians, and of course, it doesn't really matter one's nationality. The loss is the loss, and so we want to know that we've been thinking a lot about that.
And on that happy note, let's talk about the Holocaust or something.
So
kick it up a notch, Mark.
I actually, what's funny is when you do this podcast, people do come up to you with their Holocaust puns, and I got one earlier today when I was out at the coffee shop.
Ooh,
but I'm going to defer that. I'm going to defer it for a moment because I've not seen enough of Stephanie Butnick lately, and I want to hear what's going on in your life, Stephanie, my co-host.
Hi, well, it's great to be here. I do wish I would prefer to have been in California for this recording, but in the corner of my bedroom that I Zoom from, that's fine too. I'm happy to see everyone who is here, and I'm happy to talk about names later on in the show because we're getting some good suggestions. So I did a crazy thing last night, which is that I went out to dinner with friends for the first time, I think, in over a year. And we ate outside at a very cool restaurant in Brooklyn. And I have to say, we were all sort of like pantomiming what we thought you were supposed to do at dinner. Like we kind of didn't really remember. And we were sort of like, so do I order first? Like we were holding menus. I feel like I haven't used a menu that wasn't just a QR code.
With the tines? What do we do with this piece of metal that you put by my plate?
And it used to be like, should we do appetizers? Should we get something to start? Should we share? Like it was like that, but times a million of negotiating. Like, do you talk first? Do I talk first? Am I talking too much? And like after a social event, sometimes you come home and you're like, did I say something stupid? I was sort of like, did I do it right? So at the end, we sort of said, how'd we do? And we're like, I think we did okay.
I had a similar experience. I went to on Friday night. I went to an outdoor rock concert. I saw Government Mule featuring, of course, longtime Allman Brothers guitarist Warren Haynes. This is his side project, his jam band, because we are now the Westville Music Bowl, which is a couple blocks from my house, made its debut with I think they had quarter seating. They sold a quarter of the tickets that would be capacity, and people were supposed to be in pods. But of course, when you get a lot of, when you get a lot of stoned hippies in one space, Mark, listening.
I don't want to be mean, but a quarter of the people who would have bought tickets to Government Mule, that's like you. Basically, that's one person.
It's basically me, and I had a lot of space to run around. But the other people in tie-dye, they were not respecting the social distancing. There was a lot of hugging, a lot of dervish dancing. There were a lot of people wearing rugs. It was just a fabulous scene. Liel, can you top that? What have you been up to?
I too went to a local restaurant. There's a new restaurant that opened up in my neighborhood. I was supremely excited. I was even more excited when I learned it was an Israeli restaurant. I was like, oh, that's terrific. That will make me feel very welcome and loved and at home. And then I saw the name of the restaurant, and it just made me so extremely happy, because the cool Tel Avivi out there chef who opened his new digs in the Upper West Side named it Dagon, which is the name of the Philistine god, which tells you everything you need to know about Israel and Israelis in one perfect thing. We opened a restaurant. What do we call it? Who is this guy from the Bible? The guy from the Samson, from the temple, from the haircut. It's him. Call him this. Amazing.
Now, I also should add that speaking of festive occasions, I hope, Liel, that you got the invitation to my daughter Elizabeth's bat mitzvah, which is coming up fairly soon.
I got it and read it today, and it made me completely happy. This is an email from your better half, from your lovely wife Sid. And look, I don't want to sort of overstep my welcome or kind of inject myself into the psychodrama of the Oppenheimer family, but reading the invite, really, it seemed to me that the invite was written with 7 very specific people in mind, because it was this very lovely invite, and then it was okay, do not look at your cell phone at shul. We don't do that, Howard. Uncle Jeff remember that if you need a little break, you could step outside. Am I right?
We fortunately now we're at bat mitzvah number 2, and so we have our legs under us, and we remember what were the party fouls at the last bat mitzvah, right? I have one cousin who knows that he's supposed to cover his head in a conservative shul, but he hates yarmulkes. So his thing is like he's going to wear his moose antlers, and we do have to kind of tone them down. It's like, this is not about you and your headgear and your headgear choices. Like, let's make the
what are you doing?
Let's make the day about my daughter, or about, say, Judaism, which always reminds me of my favorite line ever. A friend of a friend who once, when asked, what the theme of her bat mitzvah was, her mother said, Judaism. And that's what we hope the theme of the bat mitzvah will be. So speaking of Judaism, one thing we always do on this podcast is bring a little news of the Jews from Tel Aviv to Telluride. A couple really quick hits, and then we have a couple much more important stories from the Jewosphere. First of all, those of you who listen to our podcast know that we brought you the story earlier this week of Daniel Pollock Pelsner, who is an English professor at Linfield College in Oregon. And he had accused the college president, the perfectly named Miles Davis, of anti-Semitism for having made a comment saying that Jewish noses aren't so big, they're no bigger than Arab noses. Which since then, I think the president has admitted he said, but also fired the professor who called him out on it for being insubordinate. So we would love to get Daniel Pollock Pelsner on the show to talk to us about what his plans are next in life. Also from Israel.
It's good to see justice being done.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I think he's going to trade up to a better situation. Sounds like Linfield College is not the place to be for Mr. Pollock Pelsner. In Efrat,
it's definitely not a place to be anymore, because he has been
deplatformed from teaching. In Efrat, the Shirat Tamar Synagogue has appointed a woman spiritual leader, Rabbanit Shira Marili Mervis. And so this seems to be the first Orthodox woman to be some sort of clergy person or spiritual leader in Israel. And so we send our Mazel Tov and our Kol HaKavod to her. But when speaking of Jewish women, Liel, I believe you have a more important story, dare I say, or an almost as important story. Could you bring us the news that I'm referring to?
It is a more important story. It is a story about objectively the greatest actress of all time, and arguably one of the greatest people who ever lived. Of course, the subject of my long-running column this week in Gal Gadot. So late last week, she appeared on Jimmy Kimmel's show and revealed that earlier in the pandemic, she had a mishap. And because this is so perfect, I will read this in the requisite Gal Gadot accent. This is Gal Gadot speaking. Look at me and imagine Gal Gadot, which should be easy enough to do because, we look a lot alike. So, the early days of the pandemic when you start drinking mimosas or sangria or whatever at 11 in the morning? So I did that. And then I decided I'm going to make a cabbage salad. This is so adorable. So I started to chop the thing, and I chopped the top of my finger. So Gal Gadot is making cabbage salad while drunk at 11 in the morning and chops off the top of her finger. And then she said it was a mess. I stopped cooking, and then I stopped drinking. But the story does not, I'm afraid, have a happy end, because her husband, Mark, what is her husband's name? What is a typical Israeli name?
Obviously, his name is Yaron, because any macho man in Israel is Yaron.
His name is exactly...
He is Yaron, yeah?
Yaron with a R. So Yaron accidentally threw the tip of it was so disgusted by this like bloody thing that he threw the tip of the finger into the garbage disposal, and so they couldn't reattach it. But that makes her more wondrous, not less. So refuah shlema to our beloved Wonder Woman, and kids, don't drink at 11 in the morning and operate machinery or make cabbage salad.
I will say that early on in the pandemic, when virtual events, I know we're still doing them, but they were sort of like new. I did one with the Israeli chef Einat Admoni, and I didn't realize, and so I went into my kitchen, I set up a camera, I did the whole thing, and then it dawned on me so I was supposed to be interviewing her. We were making this like very good, I think it was like a cabbage salad actually, like from her book. And
we love our cabbage salad.
Yes, I realized as I was starting the conversations, I was like, wait, I am on, people can see me. I'm interviewing someone. So I have to sort of like stay in the conversation. I'm also have to chop at the same time. And like people are going to see my knife skills, which are not good. And they also might see like a real accident. So it was pretty traumatizing for me. So I understand and I'm with her. So I have some news of the Jews that is not so good. And Mark, it is from your home state of Connecticut. So I'm not blaming you, but I'm just saying that like you're in the same state.
You're not
and here's
blaming
the
me,
news.
but it's not that I'm not to blame either, because my proximity makes me suspect. But go ahead.
Suspect, for sure. So this comes from the AP, and they write, a UConn student has been charged with a hate crime after police say he painted a swastika on a campus building at the start of Passover. This guy's name is Christopher with a K, Piper, and he's a junior from Enfield, Connecticut. So he's like the worst kind of Pied Piper there is. And he's accused of painting the swastika on the school's chemistry building, which is right across from the UConn Hillel. And he basically was questioned by police and he gave a 10-page statement, which definitely says, I didn't do this. So he called an apology and he said he sort of admitted to doing it. And he said he was upset with certain Jewish religious practices, including circumcision. And his line, the best line of these 10 pages is he says, I do not hate Jews, I am critical of them, which is the most like college student paper thing I've ever heard. So anyway, that's what's happening at UConn.
He is an anthropology major, so he's into theoretical, he's doing meta theory on it. It's not that he hates Jews, he's just critical of it, which is interesting because I don't hate anti-Semites, I'm just critical. I don't hate anti-Semites. I don't hate anti-Semites from Enfield, Connecticut named Christopher with a K. I'm just critical of their behavior. This is a real stain on the good name of Enfield, Connecticut, which is about 6 miles from my hometown of Springfield, Massachusetts. And of course, the principal mall I went to was the Enfield Square Mall, which had the pizza place, which had the G Fox and the Steigers stores. And in high school, I went to prom with Claire McGoran from Enfield, Connecticut. I mean, Enfield is very close to my heart. And the idea that Christopher with a K Pieper from Enfield would be painting swastikas, I hope they never let him back in. I hope they never let him off exit 49 again, off of I-91 is what I'm saying. He doesn't just, no, go ahead, Liel.
No, I was just about to ask, are you as troubled as I am? This is a running thread that we've been discussing by the marked decrease in the quality of our enemies. I mean, we used to have it used to be like the Inquisition, people with like great uniform, like Nazis, like these are forces to be reckoned with. Now we have Christopher with a K who writes a 10-page like missive, which is basically the anti-Semites version of I don't have a question, I have a comment thing that Jews say at events, right? Like, and the explanation is I don't hate Jews, I'm critical. This is the best you could do, really?
No, I mean, what we've been seeing a lot lately is like the swastikas drawn incorrectly, or like the things that are supposed to look like. I think anti-Semites are getting dumber, which is good because we'd like them to not exist. But if they like, we don't want smart ones. Like we want it to be something like, are you dumb? Yes. So yeah.
Although if you look at like Jewish history as like a set of movies, like the first couple were like the first like 3 Fast and Furious ones, like Pharaoh, the Romans, the Inquisition. You're like, wow, this is so exciting, and Vin Diesel, and this is great. We're now at like Fast and Furious 9, like the bad guys are like some douchebag from Connecticut who's spray painting a building. Like, this is really, what kind of history are we talking? Because we take a lot of pride in this like being persecuted bit, right? And it's
also we sort of like part of our grandeur is that we're always sharpening our knife against these dumb stones, right? And so it's like, if what's going to keep us sharp if the best that the anti-Semites can throw up against us is Christopher with a K from Enfield, Connecticut. It's going to hurt our game, is what I'm saying.
Exactly right.
Who's the practice squad now, is what I'm saying. Who's the Washington Generals now? Right?
For our Globetrotters. Yep.
I don't know. For our Globetrotters. I don't know.
Our globalist trotters.
We need to start. Here's what we need to do. We need to make them ourselves. There's no solution here. We need to create tomorrow's anti-Semites today. Because
who can help us with that is the next generation of Barrys, because I'm seeing in the chat from Jenny Russell that she is under 40 and went to high school with a Barry, and she worked with a Barry also under 40, although only one of them is Jewish. If anyone can find for me a Jewish Barry under 40, I will bring them on the podcast. They will be on a future episode of Unorthodox as a Jew of the Week. You have my pledge.
show Barry help us or hurt us in this regard?
Well, first of all, I feel like that character is slightly over 40. But does it help us? I think it does. I think it keeps the name out there. I think it focuses attention where it ought to be focused. I think it's I think it's very important. And that's why you're paid the big bucks, Stephanie Button, to keep your eye on the culture. And thank you for that. Speaking of the culture, I think we should bring on our guest this week. Can we bring up the video on one Tovah Feldshuh, who is a 4-time Tony and 2-time Emmy nominated actress, known for so many things, for the title role in Yentl, for her starring role as Prime Minister Golda Meir in Golda's Balcony, the acclaimed miniseries Holocaust, the hypercritical mom of Rachel Bloom's character in the smash hit Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which really wasn't as smash a hit as it deserved to be. In our minds, it's the greatest TV show ever. And also she was on The Walking Dead. And her new memoir, a book that we've had the pleasure of reading, is Lilyville, Mother, Daughter, and Other Roles I've Played, now being spokesmodeled by Stephanie Butnick. Tovah Feldshuh, welcome back to Unorthodox.
As she logs on, can we take a moment of saying how much we love her and how amazing this book is? It is
so
really
good.
An absolute pleasure to read.
Yeah,
I threw
Tovah,
aside so
are
many
you here?
books to read this book. Where is Tovah?
Well, you have to bring me on video, guys.
I think you can I think we made you a co-host. You can bring yourself on.
It says mute my audio, choose virtual background, choose video filter. Would that be I?
Ari Katz from Orange County. Could you help us out here?
Oh, that's my son. Hi, Brandon, darling. I'm on a podcast. I love you. I love Sydney. And I heard her play the piano today. I was thrilled. Thank you. I love you, my darling.
Love you,
I will. I'm on Unorthodox. They're fabulous. Liel, Mark, and Stephanie. Fast mind.
And
Just,
Ari. Don't forget about me.
Okay,
But
so
I think
this is
Tovah
what
has to click.
I've been on for 20 minutes now listening to you guys. You're fabulous. And I said, I can't see myself. Oh, wait a minute. I got it, guys.
She's here.
Got it.
Oh, and look at
Baruch
those lights.
Hashem.
I'm in my
Welcome, Tovah.
dressing room, children. I'm in my dressing room.
So, Tovah, this is an incredible treat for us to have you back on our show at the second live show you've been with us for. This one, obviously, on Zoom. Where are you coming from? Where in the world is Tovah Feldshuh right now?
I am in Solana Beach, California. I took my first flight, like you took your first dinner with friends outside. I took my first flight with my visor and my this and my that. And I was flown by the grace of the North Coast Repertory Theater on business class. And on Delta, God bless you, a salute to Delta. I had a business class seat next to the wall where you had a complete curtain that you can put around your whole operation. It was fabulous. That's probably where the pilot and the stewardesses would get their reacts. But anyway, I flew out here because I'm going to do a one-woman show on Dr. Ruth Westheimer called Becoming Dr. Ruth, and it will be filmed. So I'm very excited because I'm in the third act of my life and I like my work to be filmed. And so there we are. That's what I'm doing now. I'm rehearsing.
So we are going to get into Lilyville and this amazing book and all the stories within it and all your great work. How do you inhabit Dr. Ruth? I mean, she's such a character. What was your process?
Well, Dr. Ruth was an orphan of the Holocaust, not a victim of the Holocaust. And she has a German, Swiss, Hebrew, French, American accent. And she is so optimistic because optimism is a choice. And as Lily would say, happiness is a choice. So Dr. Ruth is so optimistic that all the ends of her sentences go up. They go up like that. How are you, Stephanie? How are you, Liel? How are you, Mark Oppenheim? And how is Miss Godot without her finger? How's she doing without her finger? Anyway, so you get under the character. You figure out what motivate, how did she survive? And the survivors who survive that trauma are usually rather extraordinary. And two of them I know, Dr. Edith Eger, who won the Jewish Book Award for her book, The Choice. I narrated that and I narrated The Gift for her and Ruth Westheimer. Also, I love Ruth Westheimer because she stands up straight. And before this, I played Ruth Bader Ginsburg and had to almost get chiropractic help. And when I was with the Supreme Court Justice and I said, Madam Justice, how do you want to be remembered? I'm going to be your voice in the universe. And she said, I want people to know I'm funny. That was so. How do I inhabit them? I love it. Been doing it for 50 years. I take a vacation for myself, and when you get somebody like Westheimer, who is so optimistic, so doesn't give up, it's a privilege to be inside her shoes, and it's a privilege to have studied my mother Lily, the greatest role of my career. I want to make Lilyville. I want to make Lilyville a television series.
So
and I want
Lilyville is an amazing book, and I want to start the discussion with it. It really, I mean, we read a lot of books with the show, and yeah, sometimes we're gripped, sometimes we're not. This just made me stop everything and just wonder at it. I want to start a discussion with one scene that just I can't stop thinking about. You're a young girl. You're going, I believe, either the Philharmonic or the opera, and you left the house and you're making all the turns. You're about to go on the highway from Scarsdale to drive to Manhattan, and you sheepishly reveal to your mother that you had forgotten your white gloves. What happens next, and why does it matter?
When I told Mommy we were going to the Young People's Concerts conducted by Leonard Bernstein at the old Metropolitan Opera House, which was gorgeous. And of course, nowadays it would have never been torn down. The acoustics were astonishing. So we were on our way, and I realized I forgot my white gloves. And I said, Mommy, I forgot my white gloves. And she slammed on the brakes of the Chrysler, did a U-turn, back up the driveway, and she said, Terry Sue, we don't go to New York without our white gloves. And I grabbed those wristlets, that's what they were called, because they stopped here, and ran back in the car. They were on the counter of our kitchen, and we made it to the concert. She likes to go early because the Chrysler was big. It was like a boat, and I don't want to pay for a garage. They're so expensive already. I'm paying for the tickets. It's enough already. So I don't know if we found a parking space that day, but if we didn't, she would have pulled into a garage, and we heard Leonard Bernstein, and I got introduced to classical music, which was very important to both my parents.
And it was crucial that you be dressed just so. It was crucial that the appearances be perfection. Tell us a little bit about Lily and growing up with her.
Well, Lily and Sydney were children of immigrants. My father from a wealthy Austrian German family, my mother from a Russian English family that were not well off. And she put herself through NYU. She worked and she paid for it herself. She was the first child of her four sisters to go to university. And there she met Stephen Feldshuh, who probably was slated to go to the Ivy League, but he lost his father in his senior year, and everything collapsed for that family. And he went to his local school, which was a New York University College of Arts and Sciences. And they met when they were 17 and 18, because they both entered NYU in those days at 16, because it was rapid advance. And America needed a workforce. So if you did well in school, you were pushed ahead. So you would graduate from college at 20. My father graduated from Harvard Law at 23. What happened is that part of being American, this was even true of Golda Meir. When she arrived in Milwaukee, the first thing that happened was that her father said she looked like a greener, and he took them right to a department store and reclothed them from the clothes they had worn as immigrants from Russia. So my grandfather was a master tailor. He cut the patterns that would make men's clothing, and my grandmother was a seamstress, and children had to look right. They had to be American, and America was the Golden Medina, and no matter what your poverty level was, you didn't dress like a slob. If you dressed like a bum, you were a bum. So clothes weren't clothes. Clothes were emblematic of how you carried yourself in this new country and how you were going to forge ahead on your own path toward the pursuit of happiness and the pursuit of success without the presence of pogroms.
You know, so much that you write about that upbringing. I mean, the importance to your mother of attire, the importance of being culture, the importance of the lessons, right? The piano lessons, the dance lessons, all these things that ultimately helped give you a career, right? They do seem like they're out of the past in some way. I mean, when I think of my fellow parents and you know, the sort of faint stab that we make of maybe giving our kids, for all the helicopter parenting, it's nothing like that. And of course, we let them out of the house looking like slobs all the time. Do you think that is something lost there? I mean, do you look around and say, my God, what's become of this country now that we've all been so comfortably Americanized?
Mark, I think everybody who has a successful life is happy with their era, including my mother, who was born in 1911 on a dining room table in the Bronx. And she was fluent in piano so much so that she played all the Gilbert and Sullivan at Walton High School for Girls, which was started probably before the revolution as a girls' school to teach girls domestic skills and a few academic skills, but by this time was a very good high school. So I was brought up to think that if you were cultured, you spoke at least 2 languages and had a classical instrument. My older brother, David, played the clarinet and spoke Spanish and English, and I speak Spanish, French, Italian, English, and some poor Hebrew, poor conversational, but I can read tefillah because I was part of the conservative movement. So I can, when I was in Denmark shooting, I couldn't read the prayer book on Yom Kippur in Danish, but I could read it in Hebrew. So I was very grateful for that. I think that today's society, the fact that you have spell check is absolutely horrific. That people who go to the Ivies don't know how to spell is unthinkable from my time, where you had spelling bees and independently you could write a letter and you knew how to spell everything. You knew the rules of grammar. You had diagramming sentences. And what happened is that Lilyville benefited from that. Lilyville is cultivated text. Lilyville, it's its 19th draft. I don't repeat a verb for you. I try to paint the picture so that just like a good painter, a classical painter, actually Bruegel did some great paintings, not just the famous one on oils, but he did drawings. And he would always put somebody in the right side of the canvas with his back to you, looking into the canvas, so that the watcher, the observer, would be drawn into the canvas. So when I'm acting on stage, I can do all sorts of abbreviated text and give you body language through my expressions and my shoulders and my look and my gestures. I can't do that in a book. I must paint it for you to say, welcome, Liel, welcome, Mark, welcome, Stephanie. This is for you. From the bottom of my guts, from my Gedarim, this is for you. I hope it shines a light on what you can use in your life.
So now that you've mentioned that, it has.
I go.
Go.
You go.
Tova, we know you as Tovah Feldshuh. We love you as Tovah Feldshuh. You were born Terry Sue. So can you tell us how you became Tova, how you got into the world of theater, of drama, of the arts, and how Lily felt about all of those moves?
Well, when Hachette asked me to write a memoir, I'm sure they wanted, sparkling opening nights and backstage love affairs and the arduous rehearsals and the glamour of Hollywood and New York. And instead, they got fed the longest and most profound role of my career, a role I never auditioned for, which of course was Lillian Kaplan Feldshuh's daughter. It wasn't a tragedy. The sadness of my mother's and my first 25 years together, it took us 60 years to really become intimate, approximately, not 60, but 40 odd years. And then we were on the same side of the street until she died, was that my mother was not verbal. My mother subsumed herself to my father, who was even called Sonny. Sidney Feldshuh was called Sonny by his mother, and she gave him the son. The pun of it, she gave him the son, and your fate was sealed by the match you made. And she was a great wife, and she was a very dutiful mother. Just one thing, she didn't tell us she loved us. She didn't say, I love you. That simple thing, that verbal need of a child. So when that breast was tucked away in her bra after 6 weeks of breastfeeding, never to come out again, there are consequences. Her heart was tucked away. And how much of a Yeki could she have been? She was Russian and half English. Maybe it was the British part of her mother, but she was tied to the vest. And she had a very verbal child. My father was a litigator. My father knew death. He lost his father at 16, and then he fought in World War II and was switched from the infantry to intelligence because he was fluent in German. Saved my father's life, the fluency in German. And to this day, I go to the opera and I enjoy German opera. I don't have a Holocaust view of German because it saved my father's life. I may have a Holocaust view of Hitler, but not of the incredible language that is spoken in Germany. So he had unbridled affection and expressed it in a way I could understand, and my mother did not. So I created a whole fantasy world to keep me company. I looked in the mirror at 3 and I said, are you real? Do you really exist? I was named Terry Sue after my great aunt Tovah, who died early from tuberculosis, my great grandmother Sarah Abrahams in London, who lived a very long life. And people were always named Terry Sue and Debbie Reynolds. And, you were part of the American lifestyle. Children in my era were not named Hannah and Noah and whatever. They certainly, and now everything's back. Sophie's back, Harry's back, even the old American names, the old-fashioned names, but people were not given names like Ari. They didn't exist at Quaker Ridge School or in Scarsdale High, I can tell you that. I think there was one kid that was on an exchange from South Africa, and his name was Ari Goldberg. That I remember now, how interesting that was. Or one Ari Goldberg.
So then Terry Sue Feldshuh becomes Tovah Feldshuh, the greatest actress of this or any other generation. How does Lily take this sudden kind of fame and ascendance? Is it strange for her? Is she happy? Is she a little bit weirded out?
I told her I was changing my name from Terry to Tovah because I had fallen in love with Michael Fairchild, who wasn't even from our faith. And he said, what kind of a name is Terry Sue for you? You're a Northern Jew. And I don't get it. Also, remember my friends at school, Debbie became Deborah, Barbie became Barbara, right? Judy became Judith, and Terry became Terry. And then Terry in French is a boy's name. Terry in Spanish doesn't exist, so you're Teresa. In French, you're Therese. The only place it exists in its own beautiful orb was in its Hebrew form. So I said to Michael Fairchild, well, I was called Tovah in Sunday school, embarrassed to tell him Hebrew school, embarrassed, right? Tovah, and this white Anglo-Saxon Protestant whose heritage came from England in the 1600s to this country, whose grandfather went to Yale in a horse and buggy carriage as my grandfather was coming in steerage to the United States and passing the Statue of Liberty. He said, Tovah, now that's a name.
Now, what became of him? What's he up to now?
Oh, he's fabulous. He's still a photographer. That's how we fell in love. He was taking pictures. Still a photographer, and he worked for National Geographic, and you can look him up, Michael Fairchild. I haven't seen him in decades, and I hope that we will be reunited, at least vis-a-vis when all this pandemic, because he's in the book, and I mention him all the time, but we're not in email contact. So I changed my name from Terry to Tovah. It was a love name between us. Then my last document of Terry Sue Feldshuh was graduation from Sarah Lawrence, and then I decided to keep Tovah on my way to the Guthrie. I'd won a scholarship from the McKnight Fellowship in Acting. And I said, Mommy, I'm going to change my name from Terry back to my Hebrew name, Tovah. We didn't come to this country for you to name yourself Tovah. Sydney, get over here. Your last name is unpronounceable. Now your first name is going to be unpronounceable. Who's going to know what Tovah Feldshuh is? They're going to change the H's to N. You'll be Tuna Vulture. Who's going to know? So, that was her reaction. That was her reaction. And in fact, I got to the Guthrie, and Tovah ended up being a Danish name, so that they thought I was Tovah Feldshuh, a local girl from Minneapolis and St. Paul from Scandinavia, and it wasn't until I got to New York that the state of Israel fell on my head. And I'm not stupid. I rode the horse in the direction it was carrying me. I was in the chorus of Cyrano, and my perceived value as a Tovah Feldshuh, when I had 14 lines in a red dress and one scene alone with a great Christopher Plummer, who has always been very kind to me, may he rest in peace, was that a Tovah Feldshuh that, Shakespeare says, what's in a name? A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Not true. It's a lot in the name because it's shorthand for you. Stephanie Butnick and Mark Oppenheimer and Liel Leibowitz, these have a certain tenor that we take shorthand and make decisions about you before we even hear you speak. So a Tovah Feldshuh was foreign. She made Israeli. She is Orthodox, and she's a maven about Judaism. I was none of these. I was a cheerleader from a Quaker Ridge school, and played the field hockey for Scarsdale High, and wasn't even Shomer Shabbos. But when I was auditioning for a role like Yentl and showed up with diligence in the right outfit, I think I was wearing a robe as a kiddo and high boots, and took my hair and put it in front and wore a cap from that you would wear in Fiddler, which I wasn't in. I was in Yentl. Please stop asking me if I was in Fiddler. Unfortunately, I was never in Fiddler.
We have never asked you if you were in Fiddler.
Of course
We've
not.
never asked you if you were in Fiddler.
Because you're Mark
We
Oppenheimer.
know you. That's
I am
right.
with the Phi Beta Kappa of Unorthodox. I am with Phi Beta Kappa. So anyway, when I auditioned for Yentl, I got it. And I went from the chorus to the marquee of the Eugene O'Neill Theater, where they're doing Book of Mormon, or will be, I hope, again. And it was a real thrill. So I played, Queens of Henry VIII. I played Catherine Hepburn from Birth to Death. And but my breakthrough roles were of great Jewish heroines, and then one led to another, from Yentl to Helena Slomova in Holocaust, to Lillian Kantrowitz in A Walk on the Moon, to the beloved Judy Stein in Kissing Jessica Stein to
Mhm.
Golda Meir. I also played Stella Adler. I played Sarah Bernhardt, and also played Deanna Monroe, not as you, in Alexandria in The Walking Dead, and of course Naomi Bunch. And like
Mhm.
many Jewish mothers, she felt she had to fix you in order to save you. I have to.
Now you have to go in 3
mentioned-
minutes. So, right, you have to go at 7:45, I think. Is that right?
I
Tova?
can go. I just told management, and they will let me go to 7:50 if you'd like.
Thank God.
Okay,
Sorry,
we'll
go ahead.
we'll make the most of these precious minutes. So you played Golda Meir, you've played Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you're playing Dr. Ruth. Are there any other like Jewish female legends that you still want to take on?
Not really. I wouldn't mind playing St. Joan. I really missed that opportunity. I was doing Setava. I got roles in my time that we would not be cast now because Black Lives Matter, people of color matter, and they're not going to give me a Brazilian to play where I had to put on Egyptian too, like Lena Horne, to show up on stage. But I had the great privilege in 78 and 79 of playing that great heroine and getting a nomination again, because the greater the transformation, the greater the actor gets credit. Better to play Rosalind than Celia, better to play Viola, Viola in 12th Night. The greater the transformation, if you can fulfill that. Which brings me to my mother's attitude about my career. When I asked to go to Juilliard, she said, "You're not going to a trade school." So she looked at that like, let's say, carpentry, which I think actually is a fine art as well. And when I took her to Pippin, where you put an old bird hanging upside down on a trapeze singing
Trapeze, yeah.
It engenders hope in everybody. So because of Diane Paulus, God bless her, I did a full out aerial act, 30 feet in the air, without a belt, without a mat, without insurance. I guess we had insurance, who knew? And I was singing No Time at All at the same time. And if you do your job in your 60s, do your job, you will stop the show. And I did. And I went to my mother after she saw the matinee of Pippin. I said, Mommy, like a 2-year-old asking for mother's milk. How did I do? And she said that you should still have to earn a living like this and on a trapeze yet. So that was my mother. When she came to see Golda Meir, the famous thing, I said, Mommy, longest running one-woman play in the history of Broadway, in a century of theater. She said, Tovah, I rate your parts by how you look. Dolly Levi was a 10. Golda Meir, 0. So that is what I was up against. But my mother gave me my resilience. And for any child that has a parent, living or dead, since we are all the children of parents, this book is a road in to never giving up, that there is a rainbow at the end of Lilyville, that 2 trees which were on different acres of land, the branches of our view of life, a mother who said you can't have it all, a daughter who lived like you could, they finally bowered and got together. And indeed, my mother did tell me she loved me. She did tell me she loved me when I was about 40. But she said one day, how much longer are you going to blame me? I was 40. And I said, not another minute. And then I just kept empowering her to have space enough to express herself verbally. And she exploded when my father died. She became the matriarch of our whole family. We have a very large family, arriving in America in 1902. And Lilyville has a happy ending. So don't any of you give up.
Well, it does have a happy ending. It's a very beautiful, it's the kind of book that will make you cry in a good way. I'm curious what your daughter thought of it.
My daughter was reading it and she calls me, and when she got to the death of Grampy, my father, Sidney, she said, I was hysterical, Mommy. I couldn't stop. I said, you were a little girl when this happened. She was in nursery school, the 92nd Street Y, and she said, Grampy left me like a balloon going up into the air. And the head mistress, you can't say it anymore, the head person, the head, whatever, came to me and said, this is the poem your daughter wrote. I was very moved that Amanda has read it. My daughter-in-law, Jamie Kirk-Levy, has read it. And I'm hoping Brandon will make some time in his big, important career at BlackRock to read it as well. My husband, of course, read it. And I'm very touched. Lois Cohodes, 103 years old, read it and loved it. That to me is everything. Lois, thank you for being a Midwesterner. Thank you for being 103. And thank you for reading Lilyville. And my teachers have read it. And Elia Wax, if you're out there from Sarah Lawrence, it was my Don Elia Wax, who was the first one to tell me that I had something to write about, that I had a writer's voice. So I was very pleased about it.
Tovah
I am never
Feldshuh.
surprised. I'm never surprised when great people who are great at one art are great at 5 others. And I was not surprised that you wrote a beautiful book. So the book is Lilyville. And Tovah Feldshuh, you know, if you come back a 3rd time, you get a set of Feldshuh steak knives. So we hope to have you back on Unorthodox
I'd love it, Mark.
again.
Oh, Mark, one thing, the book,
Yeah.
my dear friend Jeff Harner, who is a colleague and directs me in my one-woman concerts like Tovah's Leona and Aging as Optional, said, Tovah, I wrote the manuscript, I handed it in, they said, it's great, it's not a book. So I had a heart attack, the usual Jewish catastrophe. And I chose to rewrite the entire manuscript. And it was Jeff Harner who came to me and said, what do you know best? And I said, I guess I know theater. I was trained in the theater. He said, write this as a theater piece. And from his brilliant, simple question and suggestion, this book is organized not in chapters, but in scenes. It's written in 3 acts with 2 intermissions. Instead of a forward, you get an overture. Instead of an afterward, you get exit music. Instead of acknowledgments, you get a cast party where I acknowledge everybody like Jeff Harner and my assistant, Oliver Scholson, and my wonderful editor, Lauren Marino, for all they did to contribute to Lilyville.
Tovah Feldshuh, I want to be the first to wish you a happy Mother's Day coming up next weekend.
Thank you. This is the best gift you could get for Mother's Day. And I think it crosses ethnic lines too, you know.
Absolutely.
And good luck as Dr. Ruth. We're so excited to see.
Thank you
see
very
the
much.
show.
It'll be filmed in May. It'll be broadcast in June. You can buy a ticket. It will be streamed. And I will be performing it live at the Bay Street Theater in Sag Harbor from June 4th, which is Ruth's 93rd birthday, to June 27th, live with a third of the house. Like you're
Amazing.
Yeah. God
Amazing.
bless you. I love you guys. Your minds
Bless you as well.
are quick fire minds. It's an honor to be with you.
Takes one to know
We
one.
love you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
We love you too. Thanks for the book.
Bye-bye for now.
Goodbye.
I love.
So those of you who are fans of Unorthodox know that usually we follow up our Jew of the Week with a Gentile of the Week, but there's really no Jew or Gentile who can follow that act, I would say. So
I don't even think we can.
Right. What do we do now?
But you know,
Thanks
I
a
do
lot,
want to say that
Tovah.
first of all, Tovah is incredible. Such a talent. This book is amazing. It's like so well written, so well done. We have a lot of names from the audience that they want to bring back.
Before we do this, I
wanna-
see a bunch of people raising hands. If you have questions for us, a bunch of you already submitted them on the Q&A function. Go into the Q&A function, ask us anything.
anything at all. Anything at all. And we'll give you an
We're
answer
not
whether
discreet.
we have one or not. Yeah, we're not discreet.
So here are some names that people want to bring back. Yetta, Myrna, Morton.
Interesting.
Let's see, Ida. Someone's asking if Ida can make a comeback.
Definitely.
Hyams, Bessie, Sylvia, Yiska, or another Yetta. And someone says, my grandmothers were Fanny and Malka Esther, all great names. I love it.
Interesting. So, you know, it's interesting as you talked about those mid-century Americanization names. My mother's a Joanne. Her cousins were Judy, Debbie, Barbara. You know, it's like all of those names that scarcely exist anymore, that were the great mid-century names. Deb Schuback wants to know, what are your mother's names? Now, Stephanie, your mother is, as we know,
she's here tonight.
Of course she is.
right. She's never not. At
My
one of
mom's
your shows.
Elise.
Elise Sputnik.
Elyse, and no one ever spells it right, so it's like a little bit annoying.
Right, and I just came out as being the son of Joanne, no space, and with an E at the end. Bill, I don't know your mother's name.
Yeah, I don't know
Mrs.
your mom's name.
I call her Mrs. Leibowitz in my weekly correspondence with her.
Well, according to legal documents, she has not been Mrs. Leibowitz since 1991. She's
Maybe
Iris.
that's why she's so frosty with me.
Iris, I love that.
Yep. Or Iris, if you are
Iris.
so inclined.
I love that. And I do want to say that someone's saying, this is from Mindy Schwartz. She says her mother claims that Mindys are always Jewish, but she's not sure if she's sure that's not true. Sorry. Having said that, she's never met another Mindy who is younger than her mother. So I think this is a good one. Our Mindy, didn't we do this about Gail recently? We
did. Is there a non-Jewish Mindy? I don't think so.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, someone
Mindy
once
Kaling,
recently,
guys.
Oh, of course.
The Mindy Project.
Of course.
It's
Well,
all
that
about
sort of gets
naming non-Jews Mindy.
Deflate us.
The Indian Hebrew crossover with names like Mina and Mira is also very interesting. And it's going to be very, that's right. And I will say, I think I've talked about this on the show before, But somebody once said to me in New Haven, and I think it's true, I think it's undeniable, but it never occurred to me that Bonnies are Jewish and Connies are Catholic. And this was something that she stated as an absolute given. And this is someone who's not like deep into kind of cultural wherewithal the way we are. She doesn't spend her time thinking what's a Jewish name. She just knew that a local teacher whom we both knew, although she had a last name that wasn't obviously Jewish, she said, well, her name's Bonnie. Of course she's Jewish. And then I said, well, what are you talking about? She said, well, Bonnies are Jewish, Connies are Catholic. That's just how it is. And since she told me that, I thought, I think that might be true, which raises the question, why would Bonnie be Jewish? It's not short for Bonstance. It's not some sort of bastardization of Hebrew. Bonstance.
I love the name Bonstance.
But maybe it's sort of like the Terry Sue, right? Like these names that were aspirationally Anglo-American. Oh, someone said, what about Bonnie Raitt?
Bonnie Raitt.
Jewish?
That's a fair point. No, I don't think so. No, she's the daughter of a Southern blues guitarist, John Raitt. I don't think so. That would be a major miss if she were Jewish and we didn't know about it. Guys, just so you know, in our fan base, all of you out there, the hundreds of you, you have another minute or two to get in. If you have any questions for us, put those in the Q&A, not the chat. And then the other thing is we conclude the show by giving Mazel Tovs, by giving shout outs to whoever. And we're going to give some, but if you have some, put those in the Q&A as well. Liel, Terry Knight wants to know, when did you first start to learn English? Now, those of you who are in our Facebook group, and the Unorthodox group on Facebook is very vibrant, know this has been a huge, huge topic. Why does Liel sound 99% of the time so darn American? Do you want to talk about your linguistic development a little?
Well, my real name is Bonstance Leibowitz. I was born in Kentucky. It's honestly, it's just television. I was was not a very well-liked child, did not have many friends, and TV was always there for me. And I wanted to sound like the way people did on TV, and here we are. I also read a lot in English, which I think has a bunch to do with it, because I just sounded all these words in my head.
I do love the idea, though, that you had to watch the right TV. I mean, you were watching Falcon Crest and Dynasty, where they had highfalutin accents. If you'd been watching Welcome Back, Kotter, you would have come out sounding like Horseshack. That would have been pretty. Your radio career would have been much more short-lived.
Right.
Catherine Scher shouts out to Congregation Beit Ha'am in South Portland, Maine, for a successful fundraiser last night. It was an amazingly successful fundraiser. I was there. It was one of the great fundraisers. Absolutely. I never miss one of their fundraisers, and it was amazing. Sharon Bongle wants to know, Liel, why do you have so much damn liquor? I inserted the damned.
Well, to my left is the Talmud, to my right is the liquor cart. I feel that the two go together like a wink and a smile. I think if you want to transcend, sometimes you need a little bit of help. You need some fuel.
By the way, people are chiming in with Jewish Connies, and also Hani, the idea of Hani being a very Jewish name, Hebrew name.
So Hani became Connie?
People are poking holes in your theory. My wife.
Wait, where is there? I'm seeing a lot of stuff about Connie, but I'm not seeing any Jewish Connies except Barry Friedman's uncle. But Barry
is Connie, and she's 100% Jewish.
Okay, and Barry Friedman's uncle is Connie, but Barry's name is Barry. I mean, that's the much more interesting conversation.
Well, someone knows a Bonnie Jean who's Irish Catholic. So, look, poke holes in these theories. I like this question from Mindy Schwartz. If the three of you opened a tablet-sponsored restaurant, what would be on the menu?
Oh,
that's a really tough question.
So many thoughts, and not for me. If I wasn't doing this, I would be running a food cart that only sold one item. It would be a cholent food cart. It would drive around Manhattan, and you would just have cholent. The only two options are with kishka or without kishka. That's it.
So I have an answer to that. As a complement to that, maybe people could also buy from my cart. So my wife, as our listeners know, grew up on the Lower East Side, and in addition to going to to Ratner's and to Sammy's Germain, all those places, they had a pickle store. They still have a pickle store, and I want a pickle store. I really like sour tomatoes. I like pickles. I like olives. I like anything that's been brined. And I haven't talked about that enough on the show. I feel like I've kept that a little close to my chest, and even our most loyal listeners don't know about my affection for salty cured vegetables. But that's what I would do. I think I'd have a pickle cart. Stephanie?
I'm sorry, I just got thrown off by someone reminding us that Connie Chung is Connie Chung married to Maury Povich?
She is married to Maury Povich. Is she Jewish?
She converted at the time of her marriage.
Mic drop, as they say. Wow.
I also want to say that, remember when we had Nick Kroll on the show talking about his animated Netflix show Big Mouth, and the hormone monsters on the show are named Connie and Maury. And he was like, yeah, Connie Chung and Maury Povich. Anyway, it's great. I don't know what I'd put on. So we have cholent and pickles, basically. I don't know. I want to go
A
Speaking of
seltzer?
cholent,
Would you
I wanna
maybe
go,
make
like,
a seltzer?
shakshuka, you know?
Ooh, oh,
bringing
interesting.
Something really
bringing things
fun.
making things more caliente. Stephanie, speaking of which, do you remember our cholent tour of Muncie of blessed
Yes.
memory?
Mark, I think this predated the podcast. Liel and I did an article where we
Definitely.
did a tour of the Muncie in upstate New York is sort of like a hamlet for religious Jews. And Liel kept telling me, he's like, there are gas stations where you just like, they sell cholent. That's like it's basically Jewish chili, right? It's the stew you
in the
make
bathroom,
before Shabbat.
which is where it's
Um,
located. It's the bathroom of a gas station in Muncie that sells some pretty terrific cholent.
Can I just say, you guys
So we
talking
just
about
did a
something
big
you did,
drive.
you guys talking about something you did before I joined Tablet is like, you know, so seldom in my life now do I get that feeling where you're talking to like your romantic partner and they mention something that happened before you and you feel like this big. And my children have sometimes gotten that feeling, like the younger ones don't like hearing about something the older one did before they were born.
Yeah.
But
that makes sense.
we seldom have that occasion in our mid 40s to feel that. But knowing that you guys had fun times before I joined up with Tablet,
I
it
mean,
really,
it wasn't,
I feel
it was
shrunken.
it was fun at the beginning, but after like the 5th cholent spot, it stopped. And then like there was a very long drive home after that. It was not as fun as it sounded. But I
It was
will say,
horrendous by pint number 4, because how many beans and entrails can you eat in a row?
but I also, Carol is saying that there's also cholent in gas stations in Baltimore.
What is
so
it about gas stations and cholent? This is bizarre. This is really,
It just
Jews
doesn't
are-
seem like particularly hygienic, but
no.
happy
Jews
for
are crazy
everyone.
people. Crazy people. We would love to. This is really, it's actually, when I say we would love to keep talking about this, the proof is in the fact that it's actually what we do for a living. So for those of you who are not unorthodox listeners, please sign up for our podcast. We would love to have you on. We talk about all things Jewy and Jew adjacent, but we have to take our leave tonight, I think. Fortunately, as we move on to Mazel Tovs, we got some great ones from the audience. Liel, are you looking at the one that that Jan Levitt wants to give out to a new arrival?
Well, first of all, I'm looking at John Tice, who super fan and friend of the show, who reminds us that if we ever start a business, it better not, a food business, it better not be my schnitzel shakes, which is very, very sadly what I used to eat throughout too much of my life. It was schnitzel, mashed potatoes, and salad put in the blender because I was a troubled young man. Jan Levitt, what an amazing Mazel Tov. A shout out to, he says, give a shout out to my new 3-day-old granddaughter, Bryn Yael Yeta Levitt. Yael Yeta Levitt. We love this so much. Jan, Mazel Tov to you and your whole mishpucha. This is amazing.
I have to say, I think, so now that The Nanny is streaming again on TV and everyone's watching it, I think Yetta is going to make a comeback, which is amazing. And we're hearing again from Mindy Schwartz, Mindy of the Only Jews Are Mindys. So I guess only all Mindys are Jews.
Jews.
She says Mazel Tov to Amy Katz for being generally awesome. Yeah,
I want to endorse that one because
that.
I totally endorse that one because Amy Katz is awesome. I think the Amy Katz I think is awesome may be different from the Amy Katz you think is awesome, but I know a truly awesome Amy Katz. And so I'm going to piggyback on that Mazel Tov.
Are either of them related to our host, Ari Katz? So we also have another listener. I have a listener, Mazel Tov, to Stephanie Frieden, who says, I'm listening from the hospital in Fairfax, Virginia after receiving a kidney transplant. And hope everything was okay. I'm glad you're through. I mean, hope this is less painful than the surgery.
I'm going to go and say this is even better than
less painful than this show has been. We hope
I'm going to go and say
more pain.
This is even better than the numerous people, well, several people who've written to us saying, we're listening to your show right now, the morning after our wedding, or we're on our honeymoon. We've brought one podcast and it's all 200 episodes of your show. That's great, but this is really great. And so we wish you, refuah shlema and all the best. It's $18 to Liel, producer Josh Cross's mother, Jill Cross. We send you our regards. Liel, do you send her your regards?
Absolutely.
Stephanie,
Yes,
do you
Jill,
send
we
her
hope
your
you are
regards?
feeling good, and we can't wait to see you again soon. We do actually know where you live because you're our producer's mother, so maybe, you know, so be careful because we may show up at your door.
Hey,
And what?
no, you go. I was going
I
to
want to
ask
say
people to
that
send.
someone is attesting that Ari Katz's Amy Katz is in fact truly awesome.
I think every AB Cats is awesome. We got to go. We're going to give our Mazel Tov in just a second. But anyone who wants to get a Mazel Tov on our show, write to us at unorthodox@tabletmag.com or call us. Our phone number is 914-570-4869. I have a Mazel Tov. Before we conclude, I want to thank once again Jewish Community Foundation Orange County and Jewish Federation Orange County for sponsoring this event. And I also have a Mazel Tov to somebody who will never hear it because she doesn't listen to my show, because our show is rated PG-13 and sometimes R, and she's only 7. But my daughter Anna pretty plausibly can be said to have learned to ride a bike today. There were still some falls, but like she got enough distance between falls that I think if we're to say when she learned to ride a bike, it would be today. And there's really nothing as a parent like seeing your child learn to ride a bike, except maybe learning to swim. But it's really up there. So big Mazel Tov to Anna Ruth Oppenheimer. Liel, do you have a Mazel Tov?
I have a farewell. We began with a somber moment, and I think it is fitting in a very Jewish way to insert, you know, just a note of sadness into our otherwise very merry evening. And so we can't read every name of every person who lost their lives in Har Miron earlier this week, but we could bid farewell to 3 of the victims, to Nachman Doniel Morris, to Shraga Gestetner, and to Yosef Amram Tauber, who were killed in the stampede. May their memory be a blessing.
Stephanie?
I'm gonna have to go after that. I want to say that, so I've talked a lot on the show and in other sort of events I do about my paternal grandparents were Holocaust survivors. They died when I was quite young, so I don't know them or know much about them. But almost every time I do a Zoom, someone sort of says, Butnick, like from Forest Hills. And so that's been one of the best parts about doing Zooms this whole year. And tonight I did hear in the comments from Faye Levinson, who also grew up in Forest Hills and whose parents know my grandparents. So I say like, what's your email? Give me your email. Just a shout out to Faye Levinson. Thank you. It just means so much to me to be able to connect with people in this way. And it reminds us all that even though we are not together, we are all still together in this together. And I love that.
Amen. Selah. It's time to say farewell, and our fans know because they listen to us that we always end with a little bit of credits. And I want to have some kavanah, some real mindfulness about the credits tonight. I'm going to name some people who are behind the scenes who really do make this show run. They edit it, they produce it, they book our guests, and I've always said that podcasting is really a techie's medium. The editors and the producers matter much more, I think, than they do in other artistic mediums, because audio is so tough. So listen up. As I say, Unorthodox is brought to you by Tablet Magazine, on the web at tabletmag.com. Send us your thoughts at unorthodox@tabletmag.com or call us 914-570-4869. We often come to you live. To book us or advertise with us, email producer Josh Cross, jcross, that's cross with a K, at tabletmag.com. If you want shirts, we make a great t-shirt. Go to bit.ly/unorthoshirt. We're also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and you can find us there. Our show is produced by Josh Cross and Sarah Fredman-Ader. Our associate producer is Robert Scaramuccia. Our tablet fellow is Ellie Blyer. Our artwork is by Esther Werdiger. Our theme music is by Golem, an amazing Klez punk roots band that you should go find at golemrocks.com. Our mailbox theme is by Steve Barton. Our rabbinic hechsher this week is from Terry Sue Tovah Feldshuh. And we come to you once again from what used to be Argo Studios and is now the diasporic scattered locations of Tablet Studios. Shalom, friends. And thanks to all of you in Orange County.
Thank you.
Lila